This video will look at an introduction to universal classroom management strategies. These universal strategies are often referred to as the 5 universal strategies within the content area of behavior and/or classroom management. The term 5 universal strategies is often utilized because the 5 categories addressed include 1. Classroom environment, 2. Appropriate instruction, 3. Monitoring or observational techniques, 4. Positive relationship building with students, and 5. Utilizing consequences or correcting student misbehavior. The strategies within these categories are reflections of research supported by positive behavior interventions and supports, as well as the field of applied behavior analysis. St. Clair County RESA is actively committed to improving student outcomes and supports the research base of applied behavior analysis and positive behavior interventions and supports in achieving this goal. The supports and strategies discussed in this video should be considered as universal or Tier 1 strategies that may benefit all students if delivered with fidelity. St. Clair County RESA has developed a universal strategies checklist that can be helpful in identifying specific evidence-based strategies that may or may not be evident in a classroom setting. Let's now go to the St. Clair County RESA Universal Strategies Checklist. Click on Education Service tab, Response to Intervention, Positive Behavior Support, and lastly, click on Tier 1 Tools. You will notice that the checklist is divided into 5 columns: specific variables, guiding questions, a yes and no box, and comments. Let's look at the first variable, which is classroom environment. The guiding questions will help you determine how well your classroom environment utilizes evidence-based strategies that have been shown to encourage appropriate student behavior and increase academic engagement. These guiding questions are intended to increase your awareness of environmental variables. For example, number 1 asks, is the room arranged so that you can get from any part of the room to any other part of the room efficiently? This is an important variable from preschool through the high school level. In any classroom, it is important for the teacher to be able to address issues in any part of the classroom, as well as students being able to easily maneuver without disrupting others to get materials, gain access to the teacher, or move about the classroom as necessary. After reflecting on this variable, you will want to decide whether or not this variable is evident within your classroom by selecting yes or no. In the last column, you may want to comment on ideas or notes specific to that guiding question. Let's look at our second variable, appropriate instruction. Number 1 asks, did you create lessons and expectations and clearly teach and model the expectations for classroom activities and transitions? The research is clear that as teachers actively teach, model, and provide for reteaching of behavior expectations, students are more likely to meet those expectations. After reflecting on this variable, you will want to decide whether or not this variable is evident within your classroom by selecting yes or no. In the last column, you may want to comment on ideas or notes specific to that guiding question. Our third variable is monitoring. Number 3 asks, do you periodically collect data to make decisions about what is going well and about what needs to be improved within your management plan? It is recommended that teachers place in their calendar times throughout the year when they will specifically collect data regarding whether students are meeting or not meeting their expectations. This data will guide whether your expectations are being met by your students and whether or not you may need to reteach your expectations to the class or specific students. After reflecting on this variable, you will want to decide whether or not this variable is evident in your classroom by selecting yes or no. In the last column, you may want to comment on ideas or note specifics to that guiding question. Our fourth variable is feedback. Number 5 asks, do you strive to interact more frequently with students when he or she is engaged in positive behavior than when he or she is engaged in negative behavior, the 4-to-1 ratio? After reflecting on this variable, you will want to decide whether or not this variable is evident within your classroom by selecting yes or no. In the last column, you may want to comment on ideas or notes specific to that guiding question. Our final variable is error correction. Number 4 asks, do you correct briefly? Corrections should be brief so that you can continue to fluently deliver your academic lessons. If more time is needed to address the behavior, you may choose a time that does not interrupt your instruction and when the student can be addressed and expectations retaught in a respectful manner. After reflecting on this variable, you will want to decide whether or not this variable is evident within your classroom by selecting yes or no. In the last column, you may want to comment on ideas or notes specific to that guiding question. This video is intended to be a brief overview of the universal strategies utilizing the variables and guiding questions. If you would like further information or training in universal classroom strategies, St. Clair County RESA offers several training opportunities including CHAMPS, behavior support plans, education and behavioral strategies for students with autism. In addition, specific checklists to support inclusion of universal strategies and positive behavior supports for the early childhood education and preschool classrooms can be found at www.pbisassessment.org.